Hello. Fingers crossed this has worked. I think it worked. People let me know in the comments if you can hear me because if you can't hear me, then I'll have to just restart the stream again and start a new one. But hello, everyone. Blimey, 11 people watching already. Yeah, apologies that this video is late, but in typical Sunderland fashion, this was announced as I was heading into work from the club, and I didn't really want to do a video. I know quite a lot of other people have, and that's fair enough. But for me, I personally like to wait until it's officially announced from the club before trying to do a stream or a video or whatever it is about what's happened with Michael Beale. But yeah, as you, unless you've been living under a rock the last over 12 or 16, 17 hours or however long it was since it was announced, over 24 hours really, Michael Beale's left. He's gone. And Mike Dodds has taken interim charge until the end of the season. Guys, let's get the like target up. That would be great. Depending on who watches, maybe like 40 to 50 likes would be great. But, if we don't reach it, we don't reach it. Right, let's quickly get through, well, the comment so far. Edison Cavani respecter, I like that. Mad things, But on a serious note, looks like the board have written off this season and planning for next. I think I'll address that question. I don't necessarily think the season is written off. I think it would have been written off had we kept Beal. But I think with Dodds, the players, apparently from what we've heard, the players do seem to really like playing for Dodds, and they do seem to like him being interim head coach or whatnot. And I think with Dodds getting to the end of the season, I think it's a decent assessment to judge him by in terms of getting 2.5 months with results, with games. We've got, 13 games left? We've got a quarter of the season left. We're 4 points off the top six. Now, do I think we'll get in the top six? No, I don't. But do I think we have a bet? Did I think we were going to get there with Beal? Definitely not. Do I think we have a better chance of it with Dodds? Yes, absolutely. It doesn't mean we'll get in there, but I do think we have a better shot with Dodds than we ever would have done with Beal. Get your comments below, guys, in the live chat and see what you think. While I'm waiting for that, let's quickly read, even though I'm pretty much late to this, but let's read the statement out and then we'll go from there. So the club statement, and it's a pretty short one actually by Sunderland standards. Basically, Sunderland AFC has appointed Mike Dodds as the club's interim head coach. Dodds will lead the team until the end of the 23-24 season and replace Michael Beale, who departs the Stadium of Light with immediate effect. A member of the club's coaching team since August 2021, didn't realise he was there that long, Jesus. Dodds took charge of the Black Cats earlier this campaign and guided them to back-to-back wins in the Sky Bet Championship. Sporting director Christian Beekman said, "We are disappointed that Michael is leaving as Sunderland AFC. No, I'm not. I'm staying, mate. Our desire is to improve, and unfortunately, that hasn't been evident. So, as such, we take full accountability and feel that acting decisively is in the best interests of the club. This has been a difficult few months for Michael, who leaves with our best wishes for the future. Our focus is now on the players and supporting Mike Dodds in the remaining games to ensure we achieve the highest possible league finish. We'll be updating our supporters further as and when significant developments are made." Right. Good to know. Hello, Santa Claus. You're a few months late, mate. Good afternoon, Mr. Wells. Well, good morning, technically. It was, like I said, this was the first chance I've had to sort of discuss the issue surrounding Michael Beale. And obviously, look, I put posts on social media on Twitter. And as always, I still refer to it as Twitter. It's not X. I've put posts on there expressing my thoughts on it. But for people on here who watch my videos, or the poor souls who have to watch my videos and aren't privy to social media, I think I'll give you my thoughts in a second. But yeah, that's the point of it. Right, BC6578. And this comment will be relevant later on. The way we prepared and then played against Leeds was unreal. We now know what Dodds is capable of. Players love him and won't have an issue playing for him. Santa Claus, hope Dodds will stay to the end of the season and in the summer get Will still. That's what I suspect we're going to try and do. But we'll wait and see with that one. Right, what are my thoughts on Michael Beale going? Had to happen. It had to happen. It was just simply not going to work. And I think from the outset, look, like many Sunderland fans, I wasn't keen on the idea of having Michael Beale in the first place. But I do think with Michael Beale, look, if you go through his career, at QPR, he did all right. He did pretty decent. I think he got them towards around the top six, or if at worst, just below it. But apparently a lot of their stats were on the decline in terms of XG and underlying numbers when he left. And obviously there's the debacle of, oh, well, I can't jump ship if I'm going to preach togetherness and be the first one to leave. And then a couple of weeks later, he goes to join Rangers. Now, granted, Rangers is a massive job, but you don't say that and then leave a couple of weeks later, regardless of who comes up, in my opinion, because it's just not a good look. You just don't, if you basically would then have had to have reworded things a bit better. With that in mind, then he went to Rangers, and I've got a friend of mine who is a close friend of mine who I consider as someone who watches a lot of Rangers. He's a Sunderland fan, but like some Sunderland fans, like watches quite a bit of Rangers. And the things, basically, long story short, what I asked him his opinion on Beale getting appointed was, yes, Beale, a lot of his struggles were down to recruitment and down to getting the players in. And at Sunderland, you're not going to have that sort of responsibility. You're not going to have that sort of as much of an input on transfers. But tactically, there was not a style of play. They didn't know what they were trying to do. It looked like he'd lost the dressing room. There was a big division in terms of the dressing room and the players themselves. And that was what I was told pretty much walking through the door at Sunderland, that he's not a particularly, how shall I put it, pleasant, popular human being in amongst the club for the players. And that ended up paying dividends, didn't it? Because you could see towards the last couple of games that we just looked like demotivated. And I still stand by the thoughts I put on social media. I think it's not fair on fans to have to watch that. I think that, yes, it's modern football. I do understand that. There is an element of, the head coach is the one that does the motivating of the players. But for me, the way I look at it is, when you look at Huddersfield, I think as an example, I think Huddersfield just wanted the game more than we did. People can't sit there with a straight face and tell me Huddersfield are better than Sunderland, because they're not. And you can say, well, they've beaten us twice. Yeah, but we beat West Brom, Leeds, and Southampton. Does that mean we're better than them? So I would say, and yet, like Santa Claus just put, he didn't have the dressing room. And yes, they weren't fully on board with Beale. I still believe the players should be held accountable for their own performances. I still believe that the Huddersfield game, I think that we didn't look as up for it. And I think we didn't match Huddersfield's work rate. Now, that's different to saying the team didn't try, because I think they did try, but they tried at the bare minimum level of trying rather than really trying to get a result. And I think for me, they're two very, very separate incidents. They're two very separate things. So I do wonder, the players for the last couple of games do have to be held accountable for it. And as someone who paid quite a bit heavily paid a bit of money to go down to Huddersfield, as someone who paid a fair amount of money to go to Huddersfield, I think the players owe it to the fans to perform to the best of their ability, regardless of who the head coach is. Because at the end of the day, it's not our fault as fans that they don't like Beale. Yes, we don't want Beale there, and ultimately it's evident he probably isn't the right person. But why should you take it out on the fans by not putting in the proper effort? So, I think the players do have to be held accountable for their own performances. But having said that, Beale really didn't help himself with a lot of things. Look, the outside noise comment that he made right before the Stoke game, I believe it was. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong there, or the live chat. That didn't help things. Now, I did think to a degree that got blown out of proportion, but at the same time, you don't say so. Once you start saying that, hello, Ant, by the way. Once you start to try and take on the fans, you're not going to end the battle. It's pretty much a losing battle from day one, and from there, unless results drastically improved alongside performances and data in terms of XG, then you're on pretty much a hiding to nothing, aren't you? Let's go through some of the comments, right? Viv73, thanks to everyone who's tuned in to watch, by the way. First of all, Anth, yes, I meant the outside noise comment. To a degree, got blown out of proportion, but it was still a stupid comment to make. Dodds can think out of the box and isn't afraid to move players into different positions. I agree with that. John Robertson, when the players like postings, it says everything that we thought about him being out of his depth was true. Fair enough. Forehand flick? Tell me I've got that wrong. Watching from Adelaide, Australia. I'm in my third season following Sunderland. It's been a pretty good ride. I hope whoever comes in as manager can get a decent run. Stability can only be a good thing. Mate, you're going to be in for a long roller coaster with Sunderland, I promise you. Santa Claus, he did lose the dressing room. He never had it. Or never had the dressing room let the players weren't fully on board with Beale. Yeah, I think that's pretty obvious at this point, isn't it? Beastie, I wonder how much we're out of pocket with all of the wages his wages we've paid. It's a very well, and it touches on to Viv's point. I don't blame Beale for taking the job, but the hierarchy for offering it to him. Both comments I fully agree with. I think with Beale, this is what I mean. When people said the cheap option at the point when Beale was appointed, well, that wasn't the cheapest option, because the cheapest option would have been to give it to Dodds. And for me, I think that I'll get this out of the way, right? Everyone who watches know by now I'm a big fan of Christian Speakman, and I still stand by that. I think a lot of people are being extremely revisionist in wanting him to go. In my own personal opinion, I think we need to remember There's been a lot of good things that have happened at the club. However, and if you watch me on Fans React, that'll back up my point. Think it's also fair to criticise him on a few things. I criticised him quite heavily for the Alex Pritchard saga in terms of offering him a contract on his League One wages, basically, which I thought was very distasteful, actually. I criticised him for, well, probably, yeah, criticised him for the way that Tony Mowbray left the club, even though I think Tony Mowbray going was still the right decision. It just was replacing him. And this is where Speakman has got to take massive accountability for this. I think he's done a lot of good work, but majority of this is on him and on KLD as well. But Speakman would have had a big hand in this. You can't tell us that Beal is the best, the best coach he's ever seen and all that, which for me is probably one of the most ludicrous comments ever now when you look at it. Because at the end of the day, the coaching didn't look like it was there. I saw we were trying to get a bit more structured and a bit more defensive, and I stand by my point that we're not keeping enough clean sheets, and we need to start getting into the habit of keeping them on a semi-regular basis, because I believe we are capable of doing it. But at the same time, there was no structure, there was no style of play. The stats, underlying numbers were getting worse. And while I think Speakman and KLD deserve credit for acting quicker and getting this decision, and well, I guess you could argue, I've been told Beale resigned actually, so you can't really credit Speakman for that, can you? But I think if we did end up getting rid of him and it was a two-way thing, because Phil Smith on his on the whistle feature of the Sunderland Echo did say apparently that it was a two-way thing with both Beale and the club. So the club do deserve credit in terms of getting rid of Beale when they did, but they also still deserve massive criticism for the appointment. Literally almost every fan was going on. Majority of fans were saying, this is not going to work. You can tell from the outset, early doors, it wasn't going to work, unfortunately, and we still appointed Beale. Now, Speakman deserves massive criticism for that, and I think it's fair to give him criticism for that, because that isn't, and hopefully this is a lesson in future to not stand by your guns as much when it's obvious something isn't going to work. So just to point that out there. So yeah, those, even from someone who's a big Speakman fan and still remains a firm Speakman defender, I think that is something that he has to be held accountable for. Right. So yeah, but no, to answer Viv's question, and the thing is as well, it's not just necessarily I've forgotten, lost my track of thought. Oh yeah, it's not necessarily the cheap option thing, because now you've spent money appointing Beale in terms of wages given to him, and then you've had to pay him off probably by getting rid of him. If it was a two-way thing and then it was a mutual thing, does that mean Beale doesn't get paid off? I don't know. But I agree with Viv's comment that ultimately the responsibility for this is with the hierarchy. Well, main responsibility with them, but I still believe the players, and Beale obviously has to take a lot of the responsibility, and I think the players have still, I think too many fans are giving the players a free pass, if I'm honest. But we shall wait and see. Joel says, everyone on a work break. Yeah, maybe. Santa Claus saying, looking while at work. Well, hopefully I'm getting you through work, mate. I'll be at work later on this evening. Macamanth, his win rate at Rangers was pretty decent, to be fair, just couldn't beat Celtic. To dress that up, right? The Rangers win percentage thing, I think there is something in that to a degree, but you got to remember, there's really in Scotland, there's only a 2-horse race for the SPL, if we're being brutal, which is Celtic and Rangers. And one of the biggest criticisms I heard with Beale, and again, this is from my close mate who watches Rangers a lot, he didn't win the big games. I think against Celtic, he faced them something like 6 or 7 times and only beat them once. And bearing in mind the time he beat them, which was the day we played the first leg of the playoff semis against Luton, that was when the league was already done for Celtic. So every time he played Celtic in a really big occasion, he got beat or didn't win. So I think that's something worth bearing in mind. So really, there's not as much in that, I think. Even Graham Falk from What the Falk podcast, which again, I keep saying, I think is actually a really, really balanced. I like Roke Report as well, but I think What the Falk is a particularly balanced podcast. So I would say that it's going to be, no, Gammon's rewinding the stream, so no spoilers. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, well, spoilers, Beale's left, but you think you've already known that. But yeah, now my point is, and I know Macaman said he only lost 4 games in 43 though. Yes, but again, up there, it's about beating Celtic primarily. And yes, you have to win the other games, but ultimately you have to win things in Scotland. Otherwise, you're going to be deemed a failure. And if you look at Paul Clement, who's replaced him at Rangers, straight away, they look like they've improved considerably. Right. And the man comes to Bowers is live. Oh, yeah, I think I said before. Are you a happy man? Yes. And I will quickly address this, right? With Beale. I think some of our fans need to, I think some, not all, but some fans need to look at themselves a little bit here, because I'm someone who, after the whole game, Hull at home, joined the Beale out campaign. Now, but there's a difference between saying that you want Beale to go because you don't want to be the head coach of your football club, but also being empathetic as a human being, what he's gone on through. And some of the abuse that he's put up with, I think, is actually disgusting from some of our supporters, if I'm being totally honest. Having digs at his personal appearance or wishing ill feelings on him. And I appreciate that is going to be a minority of people. That is not going to be reflective of the fan base as a whole. But I think those individuals need to really look at themselves in the future and actually go, well, hang on then. And it's not being snowflake or sensitive or any of that nonsense. It's being a decent human being. I think we need to stop putting stuff like this down as being sensitive all the time. So my point is though, with what's gone on in his personal life, with what's happened with his niece, for example, and I'd like to think, I never pretend to speak for people, but I'd like to think that in this case, I do pretend to speak for people in that we hope his niece gets better from leukemia because, and that's how young she is as well. You know, no child especially should be going through that. So that can't have been easy for Beale, but you have to. I think you should be able to separate it based on, yes, I'm glad he's gone. I'm glad he's gone because I think it gives us a better. I don't think we still get the playoffs, but I think we've got a better chance of it now, considerably actually, that Beale's not there. But I still feel for him as a human being because I think from the outset he's had a lot of abuse from supporters, and not just like criticism and voicing displeasure, like downright abuse from supporters, and at the same, but also I feel for him as a human being. I do. I'm not going to lie. I do try to feel for people on a human level because we are human at the end of the day, and for me, by the way, I just think as fans in the future, we need to be able to separate those two things because it is possible. Let's not pretend it's not. It is possible to be able to separate those two things. So yeah, Beale had to go. It was never going to work, but I really do hope that he does well in his personal life because it can't have been easy for him. I think someone on Twitter said to me that maybe it might be better if he's a coach rather than a head coach, which is a fair point. Let's quickly skim through some more of the comments. The Pennywell pundit. Beale similar to Moyes' appointment. Moyes came with negativity after failure at Man United. Beale brought negativity after failure at Rangers. Your mum's favourite. Hey, mate. Mad Mackham's transfer. Now, this will be my close mate. No more yes man. The next appointment cannot be another cheap yes man. I get the feeling you don't want a yes man. Bowers, avoid yes man in the summer. Well, yes, but I think another thing people have to remember is that, and people say, oh, I prefer managers. Sorry, and Phil Smith again at the Sunderland Echo said this. The head coach role is becoming more and more popular. Like it or loathe it, tough. You know, the head coach role is becoming more popular these days. I think with Beale being, I hate this term, yes man, I really do. But I think if Beale, if you're talking about in terms of a yes man, then yeah, fair enough. We don't want yes men in the summer. But I do think ultimately people are going to come in, are going to have to accept that they're not going to have a great hand in recruitment. And considering that overall, yes, this season has left a bit to be desired, but I think overall recruitment has been, for the more parts than not, been pretty good under this regime. So I think if you back yourself as a coach, this should still be an attractive proposition. Right. And the Magambisi was confirmed. The club took decisive action. I read that as sacked. And the Macam. Rangers and Celtic would be the equivalent of Liverpool and Arsenal in League Two. They should win 44, 46 games up there. Yeah, I'd agree with that. You should be winning a majority of your games. Macam, are you both just the same person, by the way? Or just different? I don't know. Anyway, I'll just say Anth number 2 then. I agree on one hand, I'm pleased he's gone, but on the other, I feel for him as he's going through a lot right now. Yeah, maybe for his own sake, it might be a good thing that he's gone because he can focus on maybe supporting his niece and getting personal things on track with her leukemia and all that sort of stuff. So actually, in a lot of ways, maybe it might be a good thing for him because if he stayed, it was only going to get even more and more toxic than it already was. Sirius says, for me, I'd love a Patrick Vieira. And says, hello, fellow. And by the way, and the Mac, no, he's stealing my name, 1989. Santa Claus, I'm glad he's gone, but wish him all the best. Except he would be a head coach against us in future. Yeah, that's fair enough. And says, so his personal life is that, and it's rough now, and I empathize and sympathize. In a professional capacity, just wasn't fit for purpose. Square peg, round hole. Yeah, I think I couldn't have put that any better. In a professional capacity, I think there was a lot of things he didn't help himself with, and I think it's good that he's gone, both for his sake and for Sunderland's. Let's see. Emotionally, not getting a striker during the last 3 windows is very poor. A striker would have got us promoted last season or had us top 6 with East this season. See, I still stand by the fact that I think we have a striker who's capable of scoring goals, but he keeps getting bloody dropped every 5 minutes, which is Nazari Rusin. And I think he's had some 2 goals in 9 starts, which I know a lot of people will act like is poor, but over the course of a full season, that gets you double figures. So for me, I think again, I'm getting quite. It's not against this particular person. Like you're entitled to that opinion, but I get tired of people going, well, striker, 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 striker. For me, the position that I think was more apparent in January that I think we needed to get was central midfield in the Corey Evans role, and I think unless Callum Styles is that, then I think that's very, very, very poor from Speakman not to have got one. But I do get you, look. I mean, if you're talking about striker in terms of like a Kiefer Moore, I actually think paying 30 grand a week for a loan player is nonsensical. If it had been up to say 20 grand a week, I think that would have been fair, but it is what it is. Look, for what it's worth, I don't think Ipswich get promoted this season. So next season, say both us and Ipswich are still in the Championship next year, provided we don't go down to League One. And yes, that's a joke, kind of. But look, even if us and Ipswich don't go up, then Ipswich have spent 30 grand a week for 6 months on Kiefer Moore and they haven't gone up, which means that that's going to dampen them financially going into next season. Job up front, a lot under Dodds. Yes, that's true, but I'd still like to have, for me personally, for the rest of the season, Russian should be the main striker. Simple as that. No debate, in my opinion. It should be Russian. And some of the things like, there must be a clause in Burstow's contract that we have to keep playing him. And look, Burstow seems a nice enough bloke, and I don't really like having a go at players in terms of like, are they good enough, are they crap and all that stuff. But Burstow for me just doesn't look like he's going to work with him either. I think that he's just doesn't look confident at all. And I think if anything, Burstow might be a handy substitution later on in games. But for me, Russian is our player. We spent $2.5 million on him, I believe. So he should be the one starting every week. Just my opinion, though. Santa Claus, Envia to West Brom. I think that's a signing we should have been all over a few months ago, to be honest. Lewis says, I don't think 12 games is enough for any manager, although I get the feeling he was not helping himself with certain things. Are you saying I'm not a Sunderland fan? I'm not a Sunderland fan. I think the best way to compare this is probably Wayne Rooney at Birmingham, funnily enough, even though... And by the way, oh yeah, very quickly before I forget, I think another person we need to wish all the best is Tony Mowbray, because he's obviously had to temporarily withdraw from a lot of things that's been going on at Birmingham for his own medical health. So yeah, fair play. Hopefully Mowbray's okay. Things like that are more important than football any day of the week. But what I would say is, thank you, Mowbray, because you helped get rid of Beal. So I think there's something in that. Maybe Mowbray's done us a favour and he's not even managing us anymore. Oh, that's funny. Hello, Thane. The resident negative in the comments. I'm joking, by the way. The resident pessimist. Let's put it that way. You all right, mate? Yes, I'm okay. John. Oh, God, mate, I'm going to pronounce your surname wrong. Treborian? Oh, I don't know. I've probably got that really wrong. Russian starts for me, but whoever plays up front needs to have the right service. Yes, thank you. I think I've been saying this for quite some time. Russian, for me, makes the right runs. If you actually watch him across games, in general, he makes the right runs. And even more often than not, he has to come deep for the ball when he shouldn't be having to... He shouldn't be having to come deep for the ball. He should be staying up front, and we should be getting the service to him. So for me, that's something that I think for me, Russian will come good. I really do believe that. But you know, we've got to start playing to his strengths. And the fact he kept getting dropped every 2 or 3 games really annoyed me. Then negative. I'm absolutely gutted that Beale's gone. Yeah, you're negative about it. Oh, Thane knows he can take a joke. But yeah, I think the point I was going to make was with Beale is, if you look at some of the things he didn't help himself. And I think the ultimate thing is, and yes, we can, and I'm actually going to put out that the club has obviously put this, I mean, this has been used yet again as another stick to try and beat them with, but obsession with progression. Now, to be fair, in this instance, I think it's fair to question it, because if you're saying obsession with progression, well, how do you explain the fact under Beale then, in terms of nearly every metric we got worse? And I think that is, again, something that eventually Speakman and KLD did face up to and own and took accountability for and got rid of him. But I think even if you did a bit of research with QPR towards the end, apparently the metrics were on the numbers. The numbers were on the decline quite a bit, apparently. So if you looked at it just on that alone, then Beale wouldn't have been worth appointing. But they still went and did it anyway, and they deserve to be criticised for that, which is absolutely fair. Not abused, but criticised for it, because I think there is a difference between the two of them. Mike Cassib, your thoughts? That's 3 managers in 1 season. Statistics show that managers who have that clubs who have 3 managers in 1 season tend to be down the bottom or fighting in the relegation zone. I think with that, maybe it's a good thing we've got 47 points already. My thought is, I do get your point. I'm someone who doesn't like dropping and changing head coaches all the time, but I think in some instances it's obvious when something isn't going to work. And I think with Beale, it just was very apparent from the off that it was going to be a near impossible task for him to win fans over. He'd have to. I mean, what do you have? Like 12 games? Correct me in the comment in the chat below if I'm wrong. I think he had 12 games. And I do think that unless he won like 9 or 10 of them, it would have been it wouldn't have satisfied some supporters. So, and even I said this after winning when we beat Stoke in particular. I said that yes, enjoy the win because if you can't, then what's the thanks, Dane. 12 games, 9 weeks in the job. Even if you I said after Stoke, even if you want to, even if you enjoy the win, which you have to, in my opinion, otherwise, what's the point in following football? It still separates the fact that longer term, still isn't the right person. I mean, Norwich is a prime example with David Wagner. Even though with Wagner, they're actually starting to come into a really good bit of form. And I'm dreading going to Norwich next week, but there you go. But there's still going to be people at Norwich where as soon as things start to go on the decline again, that they're going to be Wagner out again. So I think once you lose the fans, and he didn't seem to have a lot of them from the beginning, it's almost impossible to win them over. And it seems the same to be with the players as well. One thing I will say in defence of Beale, though, he did come in at a time where what's the word? He came in at a time when there was a bit of upheaval with around the Newcastle game, ticket fiasco and the Black Cats Barb shambles. And he came in and that coincided with and I think the bad feeling to him to a small degree was emphasized by what was going on around that game. And stuff like that with Beale and Speakman, that's not on them. That's not me sticking up for them. That is just not on them. That's not their remit. That's not their sort of thing. That for me is still down to KLD and is down to Steve Davis and that sort of stuff. Unless something comes out that proves me wrong, and then in which case I would retract those words. But for me, it's definitely one thing I'm certain of is that is not down to Beale or Speakman. So with that in regards, that is not Beale's fault. And it's not fair to level that against him. What I think is fair to level against him is the performance against Newcastle. And look, Newcastle, obviously, annoyingly, are a really, really, really good side. They're a really, really good side. So from that perspective, we didn't really have a go against Newcastle. And look, I didn't expect to go there and go gung-ho because we would have got beaten by 9 or 10 goals probably. But I was even looking at that game going, Beale, we're good enough to have a go and cause these a few problems, you know. You don't have to bend over backwards and take it up the arse, basically. So I do think that the performance and the way we lost to Newcastle wouldn't have helped his cause at all, even though ultimately that's not the game he should be judged on. It's the championship. But Newcastle's a big game up here. Like, it really is. So I think with Beale, losing it wasn't the problem. For me, it was more about how we lost the game. And I think, unfortunately, there was just a lot of circumstances that combined against him. Ian Wake, KLD out. Then says, for the summer, I've actually got 2 managers that we should go for if we want to be ambitious next season. Jesse Marsch or Ralph Hasenhüttl. Thoughts on them too? Jesse Marsch might not be a bad shout because he's been out of... Has he been out of head coach? Did he go abroad to be a head coach somewhere after Leeds? Or has he just been out of work since then? I don't know. My mate again says, when a manager takes on the fans, there's only ever one winner, the fans. Bauer's manager versus the fans, there's only ever one winner. Mate, you don't need to repeat the comment twice. I promise you I will get to it. ECR, Edison Company Respecter. Hasenhüttl was decent, but is a one-plan manager. Would be good for 2 to 3 seasons. Things to me, managers like March, Hasenhüttl, and Cooper would be really good, ambitious short-term appointments. Obviously, in the Prem, I would have doubts, but I genuinely believe they could get us up. Well, for me, what I think we're going to do, to answer your question, Dana, whether I'd have any of them, yes, I would have them. My thought process is that I think we're going to try and go for Will Still again in the summer. Because, and again in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I do believe Will Still's one of the biggest reasons that we didn't get Will Still with shock gas power comes down to finances. That apparently was there a £6 million clause for Will Still to get him in during the season in December. I do believe Still's contract that clause, if I'm right, runs out in the summer, so we should be able to get him for free in the summer. Obviously, there's a risk of he could go somewhere else and so on. So I don't know. I actually think, for me, Will Still is someone that's what I see us doing. I think we'll have Dodds till the end of the season. And then what we should be doing is spending the next couple of months to do proper due diligence and then make sure by the time the summer comes around that the head coach thing should be sorted. Now, and if it's not, then criticism is fair. John says, Will Still's clause expires in the summer. Santa Claus, I do believe Will still only wanted to leave at the end of the season. Fair enough. Right. Doug. Hey, Doug, by the way, I hope you're all right, mate. Liverpool fan. Great lad. Beal had to go, but hopefully his daughter is getting better from leukemia. That's his niece, by the way, but the point still still stands. Can't even talk. Oh, blimey, there's a few comments. Hang on, I need to go back and read this. Sorry, guys, let me catch up a second. And also, get well soon, Tony Mowbray. Spot on. James Whale, credit to the board. They thought someone would work out, then realized that error and got rid rather than string it on. Yeah, that's happened before because I actually reckon that, where was it again? Oh, yeah. Phil Parkinson was a good example of a coach that we probably held on to for too long. Lee Johnson, some people will argue with that. We'll wait and see. And he says, the manager we need is Ian Evatt at Bolton. His management style with young players is impressive. We'd get to the Prem with Evatt. Good shout. Good shout. Depends. If Bolton are going to go up, though, I don't see that happening. The point is how much damage to the players has me concerned. Pritchard left. Clark possibly on the way out in a complete unsettled squad of players. I think a lot of that was down to Beale. And I think the fact Dodds is there now, we'll wait and see. It should, I think, in theory, improve for the rest of the season, but we'll wait and see. Let's see. What's the next one? Tom Bomadle. I think I've said that wrong. Sorry, mate. Leicester fan, I believe. Shout out, by the way. Michael just popped in to say hello. Rooney and Gerrard are free. No, thank you. Good shout. Maybe, hey, I'll tell you what, we'll have Enzo Maresca and you can have one of them. Right, Mimi says, what I don't want to see in the summer is another case of another one bites the dust. Yeah, well, I don't think it's going to be a case of that because I think Dodds is just going to have it for 2 months. Unless he does an exceptional job, then gets it full time. I don't know. Answer. So am I harsh in thinking that with the chopping and changing head coaches is pointless while we have Speakman? Hiding behind head coaches when a player we sign fails, Lahaji as an example. I think, again, the whole point of this is to make sure that, yes, there's going to be head coaches through the door, but there's always going to be constant behind the scenes. Where I think, again, they do deserve criticism is the fact that Beale was not similar to coaches. It wasn't similar to the way we become accustomed to play football under Mowbray, for example. But I do believe there is still good in the system. You just need to make sure you don't make an appointment like this again. And if they do, then questions really do have to start being asked. John says, Steele's contract only has 1 year left. Right then, Steele is the best young up-and-coming option, which I'm all for, but my preferred option now is Jesse March. I've seen a Polish manager has been linked recently, won the title last season with Krakow. I think it sounds like you're on crack when you read that, which was a shock because that was their first silverware. Everett's record, got Barrow from 4th bottom National League to winning by 10 plus points, playing intensity, exciting football, goes to Bolton and get them. I'm assuming you mean goes to Bolton and will get them promoted. They're actually not in a bad shout. I think only a couple of gets them promoted from League 1, League 2, and on the chance of getting promoted from League 1. Yeah, there might be something in that. I mean, eventually his next trajectory is the Championship, so we'll see. Maybe we should give him as a thank you because he ended up beating us 6-0 and got Thane's favourite head coach Lee Johnson out. And then ended up getting Alex Neil, the bald man, who I don't like still. But anyway, yeah, so I think where we go from here is that Dodds will get it for the rest of the season, and I'm personally on board with that. For me personally, if you weren't going to be able to appoint someone like a Will Still, then Dodds was someone who we then should be able to attract someone decent in the summer. But I think if we weren't going to be able to attract someone in December, then why not just give it to Dodds then? I think essentially we've wasted a bit of money by appointing Beale and then we're having to sack him. Or if it's a mutual decision, then maybe we don't have to sack him. I don't know. But the problem, I think eventually, if say we go back to the end of the season or move forward and we've missed out on the playoffs by, say, less than 3 points, then I actually think, we can look back at the appointment of Beale and that be the thing that did it. Where if we didn't appoint Beale, I think even with the squad we've got, I think we make the top 6 because I think with a competent head coach, this squad is capable of challenging for the top 6 at minimum. I don't personally buy this thing that maybe the squad's just not that good. No. I don't think that should be changing just because Beale was here and then's obviously gone. For me, I think you should be able to point out that the squad actually isn't shit. Sorry for swearing, but it's not a crap squad, and I think it's better than recent performances. But maybe that's just me. Anne says, if it is Dodds, by the way, that's 16 games for him this season. Yes, it is. I'll touch on Dodds in a moment. Sunderland is a different beast to tame. Yes, it is. Absolutely. James Will says, we need the defensive security of Alex Neil and the attractive football of Mowbray. That's the problem. It's all about combining those two things, isn't it? Then says, Everett wouldn't be a bad shout, but like Michael said, if we bolt and go up, we've got no chance. Obviously, I'll get behind Dodds, but for me, we're just back to square one now. Yeah, we're back to basically where we were after Mowbray, aren't we? The only positive I can think of is that the points gap, if you look, when Mowbray left, we were 3 points off the top 6, I believe. In fact, I'll quickly check this up. Hold on. So Mowbray's last game was Millwall away. So what? Millwall 1, Sunderland 1. Yeah, I believe, and I could be wrong here, but I do believe we were 3 points off the playoffs when we finished the Millwall game. So let me just double check that for a moment. Won't take me a second. Yes, 3 points. We were 3 points off the playoffs. Yeah, things just confirmed, but thanks very much. Yeah, we were 3 points off the playoffs, and now we're 4 points off the playoffs. So the gap's increased by 1 point. A big issue, I suppose, is the games coming up. Now, if you're still wanting to push for the top 6, this is Swansea for me is last chance saloon for that in a lot of ways, because if we don't beat Swansea with the games you've got afterwards coming up, when you've got Norwich away, and then the only easy games of Leicester and Southampton, then by the time you get to QPR or the March International break, we could be. It's not insurmountable. It's not infeasible to suggest that we could be bound 7 more, say 6, 7 more points adrift at that stage, maybe even up to 10 points, possibly if other results really go against us. So, if you're wanting to push for the playoffs again, Swansea is a must-win. No excuses. And for me, it's a game that if you're wanting the playoffs, you should be beating Swansea. Simple as that. You don't have a God-given right, and I've always stressed that. But if you want to be in the top 6, games like that have got to be a win. I can't see it, but if we were to have any chance of top 6, we need to win 8 or 9. 8, 9 of the final 13 games. Yeah, I agree. I think you need to win 8 games at minimum. I've seen some people say you need 10 wins, whereas I disagree with that. I don't think you need to win 10, but I think you definitely need to win at least 8 with maybe a couple of draws. I think around, say, 73 points would be enough to get you into the top 6, but can I see Sunderland doing it? No, probably not. And if it is Dodds, 16 games for him, 13 games left for Dodds. Can't, yeah. Right, Jim steals a cynical view here. Season ticket renewal soon. Getting rid of Beal keeps the fans interested. They'll let us renew season tickets under Dodds and appoint a crap manager. Fans don't want in the summer. The last bit is the one that I might disagree with there, but it depends. You can't rule it out. But the rest of it, I think there's nothing. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. I was talking to someone called Hannah Brown, who's really, really good woman to talk to. She's on social media. Sorry, the dogs are just barking downstairs. I think it comes down to the fact that season ticket renewals, and she said this as well, Beal would stay. She said a couple months ago, Beal would stay until basically season ticket renewals come out, or about to come out rather, and then Beal conveniently gets sacked to then sort of keep things ticking over with the fans. I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of the process and thinking, in which case then they've got rid of Beal for the wrong reasons, but that wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't surprise me. Right, Rob SCFC. I just hope we don't see Hume being tucked in as an inverted fullback again, though. Yeah, well, that was something under Mowbray that we did that was a bit interesting, put it that way. Then he says, if we do beat Swansea, which we should do, then that Norwich game is going to be massive. Yeah, I agree. I think it is. I think the 2 away games in particular that I think are going to be huge are going to be Norwich and West Brom. Norwich, especially out of them, possibly even Watford, to be honest. I think the issue, going back to Thane's point with wins we're going to need, I think we're going to need at least 8 wins with a couple of draws to have a chance of making the 6th spot or 5th, even if you want to put it into that. But the problem is, if you look at our fixtures, right, at home, we're not too bad. Well, touch wood that's not jinx for Saturday. And by the way, guys, 64 people watching, get the likes up to about 50. That'd be great if you don't mind. But with the home games we've got left, this is the home fixtures we have left. We've got Swansea on Saturday, then we've got Leicester, then we've got, who's after that? QPR, then I think it's Blackburn, Bristol City, Millwall, and Sheffield Wednesday. Now, if you look at those home fixtures, with the exception of Leicester, which for me is a free hit, I know Borough beat them at the weekend, but them getting beat a rarity. Like, it's a free hit, in my opinion. With the exception of Leicester, almost every one of those home games, on paper, Sunderland should be winning. Now, football's not played on paper, though. That's the problem. That is the problem. It's not played on paper. So, but I think if you're going to win 8 games, you need to win the other 6, don't you? Really, Leicester. If you get anything out of that, is a bonus. But then you really need to win the other games. Is it realistic to expect Sunderland to not barely drop any points at home? Probably not. But even if you win those 6 games, and you need to get another 2 wins from somewhere, and our away fixtures, aren't that kind actually. We've got, I think it's Norwich, Southampton, Cardiff, Leeds, West Brom, and Watford. Cardiff is a one that I think, with the turmoil that's going on there at the moment, I think that should be 3 points. If you want to push for the top 6, that should be 3 points. Now, you're then still needing to get another win at least from Norwich, Southampton, Leeds, West Brom, and Watford. Shut up, dogs. Yeah, you need to get a win from one of those fixtures or a couple of draws, and I just don't see us doing that. So, time will tell on that. But yeah, Thane, it's a shame we haven't got Sirkin available for a double header masterclass. Or tell me about it. His header he scored against West Brom away last season was excellent. David John, excellent news from Mike Dodds, top 6. Hopefully, mate. James, well, I'm accepting that playoffs are not happening this season. I'm looking for us to be building for a plan for next season. Anyway, do you think Beale shook the player's hand before he left? I'm assuming that was a slight comment referring to the. I'm assuming that this was. I'm going to assume then that this was reference to the Trey Hume thing. But there you go. Who knows? Viv says, I was at the Watford v Cardiff game and Cardiff were quite good. Yes, but I would say that if you look at the Cardiff game up here, we absolutely, and yes, that was under Mowbray, but we dominated that game and should never have lost that in a million years. I just think I don't see Cardiff being around the top 6 picture, and I think they will fall away to the point where I think that by the time we play them, they'll be mid-table mediocrity. But you never know; they might do well, and it might look like a mug. No surprises there. Thane, unpopular opinion, but as soon as Dak's available, the better, because experience will be key in the squad. I'm one of the few that actually doesn't mind Dak when he's fit. I think Dak is one of the signings that I think you can point towards the regime and say that it just hasn't worked. And not because I think he's a terrible player, but just because I think he's never fit. And it's like you said, I think to be fair, Dak was good at the start of the season. I think a lot of fans forget that. Dak at the start of the season was actually pretty good, but he's just never been fit. And obviously, look, he's appeared on bloody television shows at this point. So, yeah, I think Dak is one where by the end of the season, we might just say, look, a signing that hasn't worked, just move on. John says, must have a bloody long arm as he was in Scotland. Yeah, well, it turns out there might have been some people posting that picture of him on the plane, apparently, to go and see his family or whatever it is. So yeah, maybe there's something in that. James says, Dane, I like Dak. He's done nothing wrong. He got injured and then got another chance when he came back. Dane, yeah, fitness is the issue, but some people go on like he's been absolutely shocking. Like you said, he was doing really well until his first injury. Yeah, we'll wait and see. But the final thing with Mike Dodds is to start to wrap it up a bit before these poor souls have to watch me rabble anymore. With Mike Dodds, right? If you look at the 3 games now, yes, you can't forget Doncaster and Cheltenham. You can't forget those 2 games in League One. They were really, really poor. But I would point out he was thrown deep end into the situation at that point that he really shouldn't have been thrown into. But if you look at the interim period that he had this season, we beat West Brom, we beat Leeds, and we lost at Bristol City. So if you address Bristol City straight away, I know some fans said we were poor, but I disagree. I think we weren't great, but I still don't think we deserve to get beat. I think we deserve to get something out of that game. But then you look at West Brom and Leeds. West Brom, I think if I'm right, he made proactive substitutions during the West Brom game to really change the game in our favour. And second half, we deserve to win. And I think Leeds is the big one that people point to. And you could argue that was a minority sort of performance in terms of, like, say, 1 game out of 10 and that sort of thing. But for me, I think it's not just the fact that Sunderland sat back to a degree. We still had the better chances across the game. But from a tactical point of view, that was our best performance of the season, hands down, by a mile. And I think with Dodds, it's shown that it's not just that we beat West Brom and Leeds, it's the tactics he showed in those 2 games that, for me, thinks he'd be a better bet for the rest of the season than what Michael Beale ever would have been. So, in my own opinion, I think with Dodds till the end of the season, you can do a lot worse than that. So I'm quite content with Dodds for now. And if we don't make the playoffs, I don't think people are going to point that towards Dodds. So in this sense, we've got nothing to lose, really, have we? Thane says, my only concern with Dodds is when it's not going well, he struggles to change the game. The Bristol City game, for example, he didn't utilise his subs properly. I would counter that, though, with the West Brom game in the second half, when the game wasn't great at half-time, and he did change things, and we ended up winning. I get your point when we're losing. It's obviously a different kettle of fish, but I'm just putting that out there for balance. Rob says, we played well against Leeds because we hit them on the break. weren't looking to have all the pointless possession. And Rob, same against Southampton. Yeah, that's true. Well, maybe in some ways, then we might see Sunderland draw to Swansea and then beat Norwich, Leicester, and Southampton. But I get your point. In games where we're not going to have a lot of the ball, Sunderland tend to be dangerous when there's space in front of us to exploit on the break. Plymouth was a prime example, and yes, they played 120 minutes in midweek, but it doesn't change the point. Like Plymouth in the second half, especially when we went ahead, Plymouth had to chase it, and then all of a sudden we were deadly on the break. So maybe we might see a better thing of it. My only concern is that I still believe we're conceding too many goals, but time will tell, of course, what ends up happening with that. But still, things, and yeah, that's what I meant. When we're losing, I worry you might not have an answer, but yeah, credit to the bloke. You got the West Brom and Leeds games spot on. Rob says all this season we've been slow and overplayed. John says Southampton is another good example of that too. Yeah, no, absolutely it is. We'll have to look. We'll have to see. For me, I'm content with Dodds for the rest of the season, but I think one thing that is apparent with Speakman and KLD, and is Speakman and KLD, by the way, not just Speakman. They've got to get the next appointment right. And to be fair, the two previous appointments before then did work. I don't think we should rewrite history. They did work. And ultimately, the reason that Alex Neil wasn't here was because he was a money-grabbing, greedy snake, and look how that went. But and then Tony Mowbray, obviously, look, there was things going on. I think Mowbray for me reached its sort of end of its cycle, sort of extent. I don't think we played, like I said, I think there was an issue of maybe Mowbray had took us as far as he could. And look, again, he'll do once he recovers, hopefully from his medical state, he will do well at Birmingham, but I don't think he'll be the person to take them promoted. And I've had that opinion with Mowbray from day one, that he's someone who plays good football. Actually, a lot of the stuff we played was pretty good, but I just don't think he'll be the person to get us up. And I said that at the time as well. But I think they've got to get the next appointment right, and there will be massive questions asked of them if they don't. Then I'm not blown away by it because personally I would have liked someone in as soon as possible, but anything's better than Beal. No, I'm not going to say I'm blown away by Dodds having the job. I just think he deserves a chance, and I think he deserves a fair opportunity from supporters to have the rest of the season. And then if we don't make the playoffs, then it's clear we need to get someone else in the summer. But yeah, so any final thoughts, guys, before I start to wrap it up? But yeah, it's a shame for Michael Beale with what's happened, but at the end of the day, it was apparent from the get-go that it wasn't going to work, and it just needed to change. He needed to go. There was just something. It was just something about him that just didn't feel like it was. It just didn't feel right from the off. And some of the comments that he made just really weren't helping himself, because you just don't try and take on the fans like that, because at the end of the day, it's not going to end well for you. It never does once you start to take on supporters. Then I can't wait. Sorry. I can't wait to see Dodds with his Lucas Aid Sport in his first press conference. Hey, Lucas Aid Sport's all right. Then I do agree, however, whatever happens, it's not Dodds' fault. John says, good luck to Beal, just not a good fit for us. Tom Bomadle, would you take Moyes if he's sacked? Hell no. I've got mental scars from the last time he was here. I think, well, ultimately at the time, when Mowbray left, the person who I said I wanted was Kieran McKenna at Ipswich. But that's not going to happen now. It wasn't happening then because we weren't going to pay the money to get him, and we're definitely not going to do it now. So, and even in the summer, if Ipswich don't get promoted, which I don't think they will, I think you'll have bigger job offers than staying in the Championship again. So, yeah, time will tell. So, yeah, all we've got to do is go to the rest of the season and just see what happens, really. If we still want to have any last hopes of top six, then Swansea is a must-win, absolutely. And I do think we will beat Swansea, but you know, as I said, if you want in top six, that is a game you've simply got to win. No excuses. Ultimately, we need to start improving the away form if we're going to have any chance of doing it. But the home games, with the exception of Leicester, they've all got to be wins if you want to have any realistic chance of top six. But yeah, thanks, guys, for watching. It means a lot that so many people still like to comment and engage and so on. It was really good. Anthem Mackham says, the journey is long. Let's enjoy it. Yeah, absolutely. The journey with Sunderland is always bloody long, isn't it? So, yeah, let's just give Dodds the support for the rest of the season and see how it ends up taking out. But yeah, guys, yeah, like I said, shame for Beale, but we need to go. Right, I'm rambling here, so I do need to start ending the stream. But yeah, let's hopefully... right, so next time you'll see me is the Swansea video, unless something ends up happening, like, between now and Swansea, which I imagine it probably won't. But thanks ever so much for watching. It really, like I said, it just means a lot how many people like to respectfully engage with what's going on. And the fact that we had, what was it, 60, 70 people around at that point watching the live stream was just mental. John says, journey's been over 60 years for me. Yeah, I don't blame you, mate. Dave, thanks for live stream. No, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for watching. Means a lot. Right, guys, I will love you and leave you there to it before I ramble any further and bore you all to sleep. But yeah, thanks again, guys. Take care and see you on Saturday for the Swansea game. Stay safe until then. And as always, if you're not a regular subscriber, then like the video and subscribe if you think I've earned it from you. And yeah, let's get up to 60 likes, even after the stream finishes. Go on. Anyway, guys, take care. Stay safe. And as me always saying, how are the lads?